Hey guys, this is Isra Ayala Rivera here to share with you what I've learned so far from this week on the learning to know part. I found it very interesting how it just kind of confirms that we're just born with that desire to learn. Even in our mother's womb, we're listening, we're adapting, and I believe it is here where we first started our methods of picking up what to learn, how to learn it, and this is where we differentiated ourselves, and that's where Mr. Gardner probably got his many different, the multiple intelligence theory. We all learn differently because we all began differently to pick up our intelligences. And as educators, we must realize everybody is different, everybody has learned different, and so we must teach differently. It's not something that we can, it's not cookie cutter. We can't just teach one kid the exact same way, expect the other kid to learn the exact same way and get results. Kids are not robots. They have their preferences, they have their strengths, they have their weaknesses, and we as educators must adapt to them and not the other way around. Now, as they do get older, we do help them get organized in their way of collecting information, and that way they can do it at an optimized level. That way they can function better and remember things. We can teach them strategies, but it's mostly us building upon the intelligence that are already there, the ones that they're stronger in, the ones that innately their minds are always craving to get, and we must use their strengths, and we must also recognize their weaknesses and find ways that we can strengthen them. Now, in the developing relationships, it's no secret that we are a social society. We picked up language just to talk with one another. We do things just to interact. Not so long ago, we were talking about the forbidden experiment where scientists were deliberating back and forth. Should we deprive a child from interactions and ultimately relationships to see if they develop their own culture or develop their own languages? And we just deemed it that it was just way too cruel. So even then, we realized there's just certain things that we just don't cross. So as how does this apply to us as educators? Kids really do look up to us. We're the role model. As a substitute, I have many occasions kids would accidentally slip, and instead of calling me Mr. Rivera, they're like, "Oh, Dad, could you? Oh, I forgot." And then kids would giggle because at the end of the day, they really do look at you as a father figure, as a friend, and as somebody who's there to protect them, guide them, and teach them. So we must be sure to realize that, recognize that, and use that to help them develop healthy relationships, not only with each other, but with adults and with society as a whole. So developing relationships is really key, especially in this first 5 years of a student's life. And then using curriculum to facilitate second language learners. There's many things that we could do in order to incorporate second language learners. We don't necessarily have to speak the second language. Just by establishing a routine, the second language learner can expect, okay, first we do math in the morning, then we move to English, then we move to social studies. It gets their mind prepped, it gets their ears ready. They don't have to figure out after 15 minutes, oh, we're talking about social studies. We if you go out of sequence, they may not have any idea what's going on, but at least if you keep some sort of routine, they can feel like, okay, lunch is next, then it's recess, then we have social studies, then we have nap time, and they can grow in their own way to feel part of the culture of the classroom. And another way to do it is through, bear with me, is through activity time with small groups. This is something that I used to do, especially with ELLs. You are able to split off the classroom into four small groups, usually of 4 or 5 kids. You have a few kids playing with blocks. You have another kid doing, you have another 3 or 4 kids doing a worksheet. And then you have 3 or 4 in your table reading a book or reciting some sort of poem. And you're able to interact more on a one on a smaller group. That ELL has the opportunity to mimic and to feel part of that group, and that way they grow and they're able to pick up things that, in a classroom where it's just rows and rows of kids and lecture, 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 they might be giving you that blank stare, like nothing's really going in. In a smaller setting, you're able to actually recognize that. You're able to stop things a little bit, slow it down to their level, and explain it a little further. So, or you could assign their little partners right next to them to help them out. And that is why small groups really helps. Now, there are many different ways of implementing the language teaching approaches. The one that I found the better one was Professor S. Crescens, which is dubbed the natural approach, which to me sounds the best. I mean, uh, there's so many other different types that just kind of sort of ignore that the kid is an ELL, and it's like, oh no, just treat them like they're a normal student, and it's almost like a sink or swim situation. In this one, it's more of a let the kid explore, let them figure out that they're saying it wrong because their little classmate is correcting them, probably politely, probably impolitely, as we all know some kids could be. But as long as you monitor their manners, this is probably the best way. Kids usually have that drive, that innate feeling to be right, to seek information, to feel part of the community. So they're gonna naturally want to correct themselves. And as long as you guide your classroom to an inviting to be an inviting environment, and you provide visual aids and posters that allow the kids to feel, my culture's not neglected, I could feel safe here, I can actually focus on learning. And then later on you can dive into grammar and diction, as long as the kid's able to